Hello folks and welcome to Paddock Pass, your pre-race edition for the 2018 Russian Grand Prix. Welcome back to Sochi, later in the year than we've been used to over the last couple of seasons. Although I'd completely forgotten the first time we came here, it was actually at this part of the year, back to back once again with Japan, although the other way around this time. Go to Japan next week. Anyway, great to be back in Sochi, or Adler Micro District, as it actually is. Right, there's been a lot in the news over the last few days. First of all, should we turn around and go here? Sauber. We knew, of course, at the last race that Charles Leclerc was moving up to Ferrari. Kimi Räikkönen was coming down here to Sauber. So the question remained, who will be Kimi Räikkönen's partner next year? News this week is it will be Antonio Giovinazzi, of course, the Ferrari young driver who's done some runs for Haas and for these guys, and also, of course, ran 2 races for Sauber back in the day. Australia, good. China, not quite so good. So yeah, that's the news there, which means Marcus Ericsson is out at the end of the season after 5 years in Formula 1 and 5 years where he's taken a bit of a beating, I think, from the fan base at home. Much of it, I think, undeserved. He has raced well. And yeah, let's talk to Marcus. Let's talk to Marcus about how he found out about the news and the fact of what he will be doing next year. It was announced he will be the team's 3rd driver. He will maintain a position with the team as a brand ambassador, not the racing seat that he wanted or the news that he wanted, but I think he can keep his head held high. Not racing next year. When did you find out?
This past weekend, got the news, so it was disappointing, but I knew already when Kimi signed that it was very slim chances for me to have the other seat, so I think 1 month ago I was quite confident that I was going to be racing in F1 next year, but that's the thing with this paddock, that things change very quickly, and unfortunately it changed for the bad for me.
But you're going to maintain a role with the team, a brand ambassador and reserve driver for next season. Will you be racing as well, or is it too early to know if you're going to be able to do that alongside it?
No, my plan is to keep racing. I think that's the main focus for me. I think it's important to keep a relationship with the team and to have a connection with the team, because I want to be back in Formula 1 in the future as a race driver. But at the same time, I'm looking at options now to keep racing next year, and there is some good alternatives out there, and there is some good series that I think is very attractive. So I'm happy to sort of explore some other racing as well.
Cool. Where are you looking?
I think IndyCar looks fun.
Yeah.
So that's something I definitely look at. But there is also other series that looks interesting. But at the moment, I don't want to close any doors. I keep all the options open, and so combine that with my role in Sauber is what I'm looking at the moment.
So from Sauber to Toro Rosso, and question marks over the driver lineup here, having got that one sorted. We still don't know who will be racing for Toro Rosso. We expect there to be an announcement this weekend over one of the seats. Danny Kvyat is expected to be confirmed for the team for 2019, a return for Danny Kvyat, who at the moment is a Ferrari driver doing sim work, bits and bobs like that. We think he's got some stuff to do for Ferrari on Friday, which is delaying the announcement to Saturday. We think. Anyway, he will, as we understand it, maintain a position as a Ferrari driver, but be loaned back to Toro Rosso and to the Red Bull family at which he started before he moved to Ferrari. Does it make sense? All clear? Not really. Will Brendan Hartley be with the team in 2019 as well, as Pierre Gasly is off to the big sister team at Red Bull Racing? Questions abound, we don't know, but all will become clear. One thing we do know, though, is these guys have got a new lump in the back of their car this weekend. Of course, Honda has their home race in Japan in a week's time, looking to bed that engine in this weekend for some increased performance at their home race next time.
Actually, I don't know all the specifics. I know there's a potential step in performance, which is all that really matters to me. If I put the throttle down, there's a bit more power, then that's all that really matters. So for all the other details, I think Honda are better equipped to discuss.
Can you tell us?
It's a very political answer, but it's the truth in the end.
There's very shady answer. Can you tell us what kind of a step forward you or Honda are expecting from it?
We'll see tomorrow, I guess. That's also the truth.
But obviously, this has been done, one would imagine, in time for the Japanese Grand Prix for Honda. So you'd imagine they've thrown quite a lot into this.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it for a couple of weeks, that there was potentially an upgrade coming, which obviously everyone's excited about, and obviously, yeah, the Japanese Grand Prix is a big one, home race for Honda, and yeah, I mean, the last race in Singapore was disappointing, and I think it was also after struggling there when we hoped that it would be a good race for us, and I guess the incentive to bring an upgrade as early as possible and get it refined and keep those steps coming before the end of the season makes perfect sense.
And let's look to the future. Will you be a Toro Rosso driver in 2019?
I hope so. That's what I'm aiming to. That's what I'm aiming. I'm aiming to be here. I'm not talking to anyone else. I feel good about the way I've been driving. I got better all season. I haven't had the points that I feel like I had more opportunities and I should have been in the points a few times when it didn't go my way, but at the same time, definitely I should have more points on the board, but I do know the job I'm doing right now and I feel like I deserve to be here, so we'll find out.
Now, the other team for whom we are not entirely sure of the driver lineup for next year is Haas. We expect both Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean to be confirmed within the coming days, possibly even the coming week before the Japanese Grand Prix. Wasn't the easiest of races for them last time out in Singapore. We expected them to be able to fight. Romain Grosjean, of course, qualifying within the top 10. But the irony is that just as in China, starting in the top 10 actually put those drivers from P7 to P10 on the back foot. Drivers that qualified outside the top 10 got the free choice of tyres and ended up being able to jump those guys like Grosjean who'd qualified in those 7 to 10 positions in Singapore. Something which he talks about here, but not before we talk to him about last weekend. If you keep up with Romain on social media, you will have seen he got to take part in a historic rally, something that he massively enjoyed. Looked like a hugely fun event. So we'll start with him talking about that.
That was amazing. It's a race, hill climb that was created 20 minutes from where I live. And Sébastien Loeb came with the Pikes Peak Peugeot, Romain Dumas came with a Porsche, and they called me and they said, which car do you want to drive? And I said, Lancia Delta S4. And I found one from 1986, and it's my dream car. So I just got there, and there were so many people coming on the side of the road. It was like Monte Carlo's in the 80s, unbelievable.
How was it to drive?
It was great. It was great. When gearbox was really good. First gear, bottom left, and then I haven't been using a clutch for 10, 14 years in my career. So I had to use the clutch and got there, and gearbox was really smooth. The no turbo lag. The engine response was really good. Chassis was a bit soft as a rally car, but actually it felt really nice.
Is that something you'd like to do in the future? If this all ended tomorrow, would you go and do rally?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm good enough to trust at least a guy on my right side saying easy left, hard left, or hard right, or whatsoever. So I think it's two different worlds. But I really enjoyed the experience. It was a great atmosphere. It was meeting friends and just everyone bringing his car and thinking, we're going to have fun on that climb.
Sounds mega. Back to Singapore quickly, if we can. Really hard weekend for you guys. It had looked so promising after qualifying, but it didn't work out for the guys that had qualified in the top 10 that weren't part of the top 3 teams. It's not the first time that's happened this year. How tough is that?
That's correct. We've had instances twice this year. China and Singapore were actually qualifying between 7th and 10th, which is the best you can do when you're in midfield team. Is not an advantage, it's disadvantage in the race. And I think we did a really good qualifying in Singapore. We did really hard work to get in there. And then in the race, unfortunately, after 5 laps after the safety car, the tires were completely gone, so we had to pit and ended up behind the pack and couldn't overtake. So it's not great that position 11, or to think that if you qualified 13th, you're still going to be in a better place than the guys which is qualified 7th.
Would you consider just sitting out Q2 if you know what the tyre deck's going to be like after practice, and looking at it and thinking actually getting into the top 10 is not going to suit us?
Well, we've got to see what the tyre deck here is, but it's an option. It's an option not to try to go into Q3 and aim for P11. It's a bit of a shame, and we had that I think in 2010. I remember when I was a third driver for Lotus, they were asking me to run down the pit lane and look who was going to go out and not, and who was saving tires. And in Q3 you just be the first one to go out, but just come back in and set no lap time and then have the best position, save tires. I don't think it's a great positions, and I think performance into quali and effort into quali should be rewarded into the race.
Interesting stuff then from Grosjean about the possibility for teams such as Haas to maybe not run at all in Q2, which, if it was to come to pass because of the nature of the track, would seem somewhat farcical. Another team that might be able to do that is Renault. Of course, Haas and Renault locked in that battle for 4th place in the constructors' standings. Are Renault confident that they can keep that momentum, keep that battle strong, as they have just that small gap at the moment? I think it's 15 points over Haas in that battle, that all-important battle for 4th.
I like the track a lot. Most people don't like coming to the Russian Grand Prix. I love it actually. It's an efficient Grand Prix. I don't know. The hotel is right behind here. Short ways, not too crowded. The Grand Prix, cool track. So I'm all up for it.
It is a cool track. Do you enjoy driving it? Do you find you can get into the flow of this place?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite a fast and flowing track, and I like those sort of places. Obviously, it's not much elevation change, just a little bit, but. No, the track is a good mix of different corners, good layout, and it's fun, and I like it.
Singapore was an odd one in terms of you guys that qualified top 10, the strategy, it seemed better to be outside the top 10 than inside that top 10. Do you think this is another track where that could play out?
Maybe. Obviously, it's the same tyre choice as we had in Singapore, so the same risk, is there. Obviously, we have to see tomorrow how the hyper soft, how they last, if they really degrade as much as they did in Singapore. Singapore, obviously, it's many corners. It's very hot, very rough asphalt. Here's much smoother, so we'll have to see how that influences the tyre behavior, but it could happen again, yeah.
Would you roll the dice to not run in Q2 to get the free choice of tyres, or is it always worth getting into Q3 just so you've got position?
It's honestly, it's hard to tell and to predict, because every weekend, every race is different. I think it's quite hard to answer that.
Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing, as we've been saying all season pretty much, since that horrible start, but since Monaco he's been the man to beat at Red Bull, very much the team's number one. He's qualified the best, he's raced the best, and as we said, he is definitely the team's number one at the moment as Daniel Ricciardo departs for Lands Anew at Renault. This weekend though, Verstappen's going to have it a lot harder because he will be starting from the back of the grid, a B-spec engine put in the back of his car, not the latest C-spec. What is the reason for that? That and more questions to be answered by Mr. Max Verstappen. Grid penalty, new engine, but a reversion to an older spec. Can you explain the reason for moving backwards a step to everybody at home?
Yeah, so the C-spec is not allowed to run at high altitude like in Mexico and Brazil. So we always knew that once we took on the C-spec, we had to take another engine again, which we're doing now in Russia.
So were you always expecting this weekend to be a difficult one? That's why you're taking an engine penalty here.
Yeah, I mean, just looking to the track, it's definitely not our favorite in terms of layout. So I think this is definitely then one of the best tracks to take a penalty.
Why is that? Because we're used to you guys doing well on street circuits like Monaco or Singapore, and this, people would look at it and say, it's a street circuit, why don't Red Bull go well here? But it's a very different sort of layout to a normal street track.
I wouldn't say this is a street circuit. I mean, it's quite a permanent track, and a lot of long straights, and the corners are very 90 degrees, so are very short, so you can't really gain as much as you normally would do in a longer corner. So yeah, there's not really much we can do here, over here.
As everybody starts to look towards next year, how's Red Bull's sort of motivation over these last races? Because obviously you're not going to have Renault into next year. Are they starting to pull back on what they're giving you? Will it still be everything pushed towards the end of the season, or is it starting to kind of slow down?
Well, I mean, we used the C-spec and they didn't, and they offered it to us, so I don't think they're holding us back at all. We are still trying to have good results, and they also want good results with their engines, so I don't think there's anything behind it there. Of course, we are very motivated for next year, and every time we go to a track where the engine is not as important, our car seems to be working really well. Of course, there are some tracks which will suit a Ferrari or Mercedes a little bit better than us, but I think overall on every single weekend we've had a good car.
Force India should have had a very good weekend in Singapore. Both drivers qualified in the top 10. It was all looking great until that left-hander, Sergio Perez, didn't give his teammate any room. Ocon's in the wall and out of the race, and then later on in the race, Perez, the team thought was on a bit of a charge back into the points, couldn't get past Sergei Sorokin, flustered, annoyed, gets alongside him, buff into him. Was that deliberate? Was it frustration boiling over in Perez, or was it just a mistake? Did he not see him? Did he try and close the door and biff into him? Let's talk to Sergio. But first, we did speak to Esteban Ocon. As is normal, we just do sort of one driver per team on here. But we did speak to Esteban earlier today. Had a lovely Instagram message that he put out last night of himself and Lance Stroll on their plane coming out here. And it's a little known fact that, well, it may be known if you do know it, but Lance and Esteban are really, really good mates. And a lot of people are sort of online have been giving Lance a load of hell about the fact that it looks like Lance Stroll will be a Force India driver next year, and that Esteban Ocon will not be. And Esteban basically made the plea, don't give this guy crap. You know, he's just a racing driver like I. Yes, we come from different backgrounds, but we want the same things, and we're driven by the same passions and the same desires to race, to get off his back. And I think that was a nice message from Esteban, particularly as his future is so uncertain. As he said to us today, he doesn't want to go and race anywhere else. His focus is on Formula One, whether that means he's a reserve driver, a third driver, or if a seat at Williams is there for the taking, he wants to remain in Formula One. It looks like that Williams seat is his only option. Anyway, we'll talk to his teammate Sergio Perez on a day in Singapore when the team should have scored points in that battle to catch up and overtake McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, and ultimately ended up losing position to them. Well, not position, but points to them rather than catching them up. Back to a track at which you have very happy memories. How do you think the team's going to go this weekend?
I think we'll go very well. I think we've always been strong in the past, so we should be looking to do a good race and try to score as many points as possible. I think the car is performing very well, so we are quite confident for this one.
Singapore had so much potential to be a great weekend for you guys. Have you spoken to the team and to Esteban about lap one?
Yeah, we spoke briefly. It was very, very hard, you know. In my point of view, just a racing incident. 3 cars making one corner with Grosjean, you know. There I had to get room. Then Esteban was on the outside, so basically it all happened very quickly. As I was picking up the power, there was some contact that I felt. At the time, didn't realize that was even Esteban. So just very unfortunate afternoon for us, especially after the good qualifying that I had.
And then the penalty at the end, obviously, with what happened with Sergio. We'd heard some frustration from you on the radio. Was that just not getting the space right in pulling the move off? Was there an element of frustration as you passed him? What happened there?
No, to me, with these mirrors, we've been complaining on drivers about it. I just lost the reference where he was exactly, and I tried to shut the door too early, and that was all my mistake. So I paid for it. I think the FIA was right to give me the penalty, and it just looked a lot worse, you know, from the outside. But no, I did a mistake and I paid for it.
Going back to you and Esteban, when you two have come together before, the team has said that you wouldn't be allowed to race each other. With points so important, as you guys try to fight your way back up through the constructors' field in these last few races, will you be allowed to race each other for the rest of the season, or will you have to just hold position if you're in those places again?
I think we will be allowed, you know, to race, but we will see. We haven't heard anything. I think the team is in the place that it's just a racing incident, and especially in lap 1, you know, it's very hard to have orders, you know, because you have 20 cars around you, so very difficult. So yeah, we will see. But the most important is that we score strong points for the team.
And so to the other side of the argument, and to Sergio Sorokin, who has had a very strong second half of the season so far, I think, and had another strong outing in Singapore. Perez was flustered behind him. Is that what created that little moment between the two of them? Let's talk to him about that. And of course, his defending, which Perez within the race wasn't massively happy with. I think he's had a really strong couple of races. It shows in his power rankings on the F1 website. Go check them out. That a lot of people in this paddock agree that Sergio Sorokin is racing very, very well at the moment, but just isn't quite being able to get those points to really show, I think, what a good run he's on. Home race, and on the back of a really strong, hard, battling race in Singapore. How much are you looking forward to this weekend?
Looking forward. Honestly, as much as to any other race, but I mean, apart from if we forget the racing on its own, it's been quite a special weekend. It's obviously the attention I got. It's very impressive for me. It's it's a lot of people here, a lot of support I'm getting. So it is busy. I mean, all day yesterday, all day today, I'm consistently running up and down, doing this and that. So it's for sure it's not the optimum preparation for the weekend, but again, I just try to use all of this, positive energy coming from all the people from all over the place, and use it in my performance. So it is not easy to manage all of that all of that going on. But again, I just try to use the positives.
Let's talk about Singapore. Checo wasn't too happy with the way in which you were defending. How do you think you defended?
I perfectly know how I was, and I tell you more after that. On Tuesday, when I came back home to UK, I watched the full race, and I watched every single in slow-mo fight I had, and I saw the moments he or someone else wasn't happy about, but I could once again be sure that in terms of the rules, and even more in terms of like human, sometimes you can behave nice in rules, but humanly it wasn't the nicest thing. The most important for me that after watching this, I could say that okay, what I did was right in both ways. So I have nothing to hide. I mean, I'm absolutely open to discuss anything. So I know exactly what I did, which lap I did, why I did, and how I did that. So I have no problem to come and discuss. When you're honest, you're open. So
Talk about doing things in the right way. When the two of you made contact, do you believe Sergio drove in the right way at that point?
Honestly, it's another question. I know he wasn't happy with me probably, but I just don't want to say so many people ask me, bad things. But I think we should try to turn it around in the other way. That we have been fighting with him for like 10-15 laps. It's been very close, very honest, and very hard fight, and nothing happened. And I think we both enjoyed this fight for quite a while before. Yes, we had a contact in the end, but it's not fair to say that it's been something, and try to be too harsh with anyone. It's a racing. We had a good fight before that, and I think that's the most important. I know it didn't end up ideal for both of us, and but again, it is racing. So.
And so to McLaren and to Stoffel Van Dorn coming into the twilight, incredibly, certainly of this part of his Formula One career, just 6 races left. To impress with McLaren in what's been a very, very difficult period for him, where does his future lie? Will it be with a Formula One team? Will it be outside? There's rumours he may go to Formula E, rumours he may go with McLaren to an IndyCar seat. Anyway, let's talk to him about hopes for this weekend, and indeed what does he do, where does he go in 2019?
I don't think it's the best circuit for us. It's been a year and a half since we've been here, so obviously a lot of things have changed. We'll see. A lot of people will probably take penalties here, so maybe that's something we can actually benefit of. It's always been a one-stop race with very low degradation, and overtaking has been, we've had pretty boring races here, to be honest. So we'll see how it pans out.
What is your focus now for these last few races of the year? Is it trying to fashion something on the remaining seats that exist in this sport, or is your vision now very much outside of Formula One and what you can make elsewhere for next year?
Well, first of all, I would, I'm trying to enjoy the last couple of Grand Prix with McLaren. It's been a tough time and a tough year, especially in terms of results we've had, and the past 2 seasons have been difficult. But I'm making the most of it. I've made a lot of friends here, and I want to finish on a positive note. And it's clear in my mind what I want to do next year. So I hope I can tell you guys a bit more.
Is it F1?
The chances to be in Formula One are, I think, very, very minimal. So probably nothing in Formula One. There's a lot of things next to Formula One as well that are very interesting. And the good thing is, I've had a lot of offers from different series, different teams, and it's been nice to be in that position. So I think in my mind I know exactly what I want to do. So that's good.
Time is running out for Sebastian Vettel and the 2018 Formula One World Championship. There were races that these guys were expected to win and win comprehensively, in which they've been beaten. Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton now with a championship lead, which many people in this paddock believe is unassailable. If anybody, though, can cut that back, you've got to think that it's Sebastian and Ferrari. But how confident is he coming to a racetrack and a race where Mercedes have always had the advantage? Can he turn the tide on them as they have done to him and Ferrari in recent races?
I think we have a fair chance. We had races in the past that we should have won, we didn't, and we had others that we won and we shouldn't have. So you never know what happens, but anything is possible. So I'm not aiming to win all 7 races. First of all, I'm aiming to win here, and then once that's done, we go to the next one, and you go to the next one. I don't think it's much point looking 5-6 races ahead. I think you're much better off staying in the moment and focusing on what lies in front of you, and right now that's FP1.
And so we finish today down at Mercedes, not with Lewis Hamilton though. We're going to finish with Valtteri Bottas, the guy who got his first Grand Prix victory at this track and who could in the early part of the year have been leading this championship. How different would we be viewing his 2018 season if he had in fact led that championship, if he had in fact won a race this year? The pressure is mounting on Valtteri, not least because of the issues surrounding Esteban Ocon and where, of course, he ends up next year. All the noise from Mercedes saying, well, Esteban is our future, we want him as a part of this team, we don't want to lose him. Well, what does that do for Valtteri Bottas? How much pressure does that place on him coming back to the scene of his first Grand Prix victory? How much does he need a win this year to really put a stamp on the advances that he'd made and the improvements that he's made over the last 12 months? Valtteri, back to happy hunting ground for you. Does it feel good to be back in this paddock, back at this track?
Yeah, it does. It's definitely brings up some memories from the past. So yeah, good to be back and knowing that normally it's been a decent performance here for me, and just trying to repeat that.
It's one of those circuits that's very much a Valtteri Bottas circuit, a track that few drivers find it easy to find a flow. And yet you somehow are able to do it. What is it about your driving style that sees these quite stop-start circuits actually really suit you and enable you to find that flow?
I think since the first year we came here, I just found the rhythm here quite nicely, very quickly, and been able to build on that each year. I never felt like here, particularly there was any corner that I didn't like or had any weaknesses. So I try to keep it that way, try to be even better. But I don't know, it is a good question. Definitely, yeah, I think some things on the driving style may affect, but I think it's a lot about just finding the flow and finding the perfect lines, etc. for every single corner.
6 races to go. Can you believe that you've not had a win yet this year?
It's hard to believe, but that's a fact, and that's where we are. And that's something I can't change. I only can change what's ahead. So let's see this weekend.
The future for you. A lot of people are obviously going to start asking questions now with everything that's going on with Esteban Ocon and his Mercedes future. Do you find that puts pressure on you to get that victory, to impress in these last 6 races? Do you feel that, or is that very much something that we in the press would create and place upon you?
I think for sure you guys are creating a lot of stuff, but but also there are some facts that for sure I need to perform. That's how it goes. I want to perform, and the team knows exactly how my performance has been this year, and it's been better than last year. So I just need to keep on building that, keep on getting better, working on my weaknesses, working on my strengths, and if I will be able to achieve my goals, whatever the decisions are going to make for my future at some point next year, I'm sure that's going to be okay, but I need to keep up to my targets and keep getting into those goals.
So that is your lot from Paddock Pass. Will it be a Ferrari weekend? Will it be a Mercedes weekend? Can anybody else get up there into the mix? Time will tell as to whether Ferrari can do to Mercedes here at what has traditionally been a Mercedes track, what Mercedes have done to Ferrari on what have traditionally been their tracks. I don't think this championship is anywhere near over, but if Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes manage to ratchet up another Grand Prix victory, they will step closer to having the tips of their fingers on that 2018 trophy. Join us for everything over the course of the weekend, but for now, from us on Paddock Pass, thanks very much.